Hey, it's Sam, talking about the moon in Cancer. So when the moon is in the sign of Cancer, it's in its own sign. And when a planet is in its own sign, it's like when you're in your element or in your own house, let's say. When you're in your own house, you have all your stuff around, you know where everything is. You feel very aligned, and if you want to do something, you know just where to find it, and it's very consistent and solid energy. And so when the moon is in Cancer, this quality of the moon becomes quite supported. The other thing about when a planet is in its own sign is it can also, because it's so comfortable, it can actually be an extreme. Like we might do that thing a whole lot, maybe more than we're supposed to. Because each one of the planetary energies is really just one force, and we're supposed to use that force when it's appropriate and then put it away when it's not. So too much moon in Cancer energy, too much moon energy is something akin to just being sort of wearing our heart on our sleeve like all the time, because the moon is really the sort of capacity for selfless love and the desire to want to merge our heart with the heart of everything and everyone. So rather than being in this sort of transactional and conditional quality of love, that sort of transactional conditional love is related to Venus, where I get this, you get this. It's very good for romantic relationships and adult relationships where there's evenness and equality. The moon is the kind of love that's totally selfless, where we literally don't expect anything in return. Like a mother's love for a helpless child when the child is an infant. The mother and the father just give love to the child. They don't expect anything in return. As the child grows up, even as the child is 1, 2 years old and it's an infant, we just shower love on the child. Now, as the child starts to grow up and starts to develop more of a personality and starts to challenge us and starts to become more of someone that we need to deal with as an equal, that's when the Venus relationship starts to come in. But the selfless love and that joy that comes from just giving love to another creature is the quality of the moon. So when the moon is in Cancer, that feels very aligned and very harmonious. Now, the highest quality of that love is actually devotion. Because really what happens is the mother and the father, they're actually devoted to the child. That's what devotion is. When we're devoted to a child, though, the child grows and changes, and again, that relationship becomes more complicated. It becomes a Venus relationship with mutual respect and other kinds of things. But devotion is ultimately about our devotion to, of course, God, or that great mystery of life, that thing that we can't understand or manipulate or control or deal with. So in the highest sense, devotion is something that comes when we're devoted to something higher than just anything of this world. If we're devoted to our children, because they're human beings, they're going to disappoint us at some point, and then we're going to be frustrated, and then we're going to get into this ego struggle, for instance. The other thing that's good to understand the highest quality of the moon, and particularly the moon in Cancer, and the capacity of that devotion, is taking care of animals like pets. They're also very much a moon and a Cancerian thing, because we just shower love on the dog or the cat, even though the dog or cat doesn't reciprocate. So the highest expression of that is devotion. And that devotional quality of the moon is very important. But the counterfeit version of that devotion and that selfless love, that pure love, is emotion. We don't even usually experience the pure nature of the moon because we ride up and down on the waves of emotion, and that's just how we experience our heart, unfortunately. We don't even hardly ever experience that pure love, that pure devotion, which is deeper than the waves of emotion on the surface. So again, when a planet is in its own sign, it gives a high capacity to really understand that force in all its glory. And for the moon, it's that capacity for selfless love, which has no limits, has no protection, has no barrier, has no sensible conclusion. We don't know why we love something, we just do. And that the source of that is enormous truth. But instead, because we attach that love to something external, it generates a desire, and that desire creates emotion. So what typically happens with the moon, and also the moon in Cancer, because it's very developed, it's very sensitive, is we fixate on something external, which generates a lot of emotion, and we lose the source of love in our heart. So when people have the moon in Cancer, I always instruct them, you need to connect with something deeper. You need to go inward toward the source of pure love in your heart rather than the external form that it takes. And you need to elevate the nature of the emotions toward devotion, or go deeper into the nature of emotions, like rather than riding up and down on the waves of the ocean, sink deeper into the depth where it's quiet and peaceful. So this is a way to understand the moon in Cancer. It's in its own sign. It's a sign of pure feeling, but also the source of feeling, which through our ego and our sense of separateness we experience as emotion. It can be a lot of volatile emotions. But that volatility is also a lot of energy that can be channeled into higher forms of feeling and devotion that allow us to really connect with the truth of the heart rather than get knocked around on the waves of emotion, which is much more likely when the moon is in other signs. So I hope this was helpful.